Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are going to learn to express probability as a fraction or a decimal. We've got 4 success criteria, and the first one is to place probabilities on the probability scale. So probability is the likelihood of something happening. We can use words like certain, likely, even chance, unlikely, and impossible to describe probability. And we can put these words on a probability scale. So the probability scale goes from impossible to certain, with even chance in the middle. Unlikely is in between impossible and even chance, and likely in between even chance and certain. Here are some events, and we can put these events on the probability scale. So the sun will rise tomorrow is certain. I will win the lottery is not impossible, but it's very close to it. A pig will sprout wings and fly would be impossible. It will rain in August in the UK is likely. And I toss a coin and it lands on heads would be even chance. So that's success criteria 1 done. So now we're going to move on to number 2, and we want to find the probability of an event. So we can assign numbers to this probability scale. Impossible has 0 chance of happening, and certain has 1. So all probability is out of 1. Even chance would be a half, unlikely a quarter, and likely 3/4. So we can write probability as a fraction, a decimal, or a percentage. Unless it says otherwise in the question, try to write it as a fraction. So there are 10 counters in a bag. There are 5 red counters, 2 blue counters, and 3 green. What is the probability of pulling out a red counter? So if we write this as a fraction, the number on top is the number of what you want to happen, and the number on the bottom is the total number of possibilities. So we've got 5 red counters out of 10 in total. So the probability of pulling out a red counter is 5 out of 10. This time, we want the probability of pulling out a red or a green counter. So we can add the 2 probabilities together. The probability of red is 5 out of 10. The probability of green is 3 out of 10. So that would be 8 out of 10. Here's a question for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to see the answer, press play. So this question says, what is the probability of pulling out a blue counter? So there are 2 blue counters out of 10. So the probability is 2 out of 10. Here's another question for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to see the answer, press play. This question says, what is the probability of not pulling out a green counter? So there are 7 counters that aren't green, and again out of 10. So the probability is 7 out of 10. In this question, we're told the probability that I win a game of chess is 0.3, and that I lose is 0.6. So what is the probability that I win my first game but lose my second game? So the probability that we win the first game is 0.3, and the probability we lose the second game is 0.6. So we times those together. So the probability I win the first game but lose the second game is 0.18. So now we've completed success criteria 2. So now we're going to move on to number 3, and this is to understand not probability. So the probability that it will rain tomorrow is 1/3. So what is the probability that it won't rain tomorrow? So all probability adds up to 1. So if we want the probability that something doesn't happen, we take the probability that it does happen away from 1. So we do 1 take away 1/3, which is 2/3. This question says the probability that someone will be late to school is 0.15. The probability that someone will be early is 0.2. So what is the probability that they will be on time? Well, remember, all probability adds up to 1. So if we take these two probabilities away from 1, what's left will be the probability that they will be on time. So the answer is 0.65. This is because there's only 3 possible outcomes. You can either be late, early, or on time. Here's some questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. There's your green answers. There's your amber answers. And there's your red answers. Now we've completed success criteria 3. So now we're going to move on to number 4, and this is to calculate probabilities using sample spaces. A sample space shows us all the possible outcomes of an experiment. So for instance, 2 spinners are labelled 1 to 4 a spun. The scores are then added together. Draw a sample space to show all the possible outcomes. So we've got all the outcomes of spinner 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the outcomes of spinner 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we get a 1 and a 1, that's a 2 because we add the scores together. A 1 and a 2 would be a score of 3. A 3 and a 4 would be a score of 7, and so on and so forth. So this is known as a sample space. So now we can use this sample space to answer some questions. So what is the probability of scoring a 3 or a 4? So we have a look how many scores of 3 and 4 there are, and there's 5. And we want the number of ways to get a 3 and a 4, so that's 5, out of the total number of possible scores. So there's 16 possible scores. So it would be 5 out of 16. For this question, what is the probability of scoring a number greater than 5? So we have a look at how many scores are greater than 5. And there's 6 of them. And again, the total number of possible outcomes is 16. This time, we want what is the probability of scoring a prime number. So if we highlight all the prime numbers, and we can see there's 9 ways to get a prime number, and again it's out of 16. In this question, a coin is flipped 3 times. List all the possible outcomes. So we could get a head and 2 tails, or 3 tails, or a tails, a heads, then tails, or tails, tails, then heads. We could get 3 heads, tails, then 2 heads, a head, then a tails, then a head, or 2 heads and a tail. So So there's 8 possible outcomes in total. So what is the probability of getting 3 tails? Well, there's only one way of getting 3 tails, and the total number of outcomes is 8. So the probability of getting 3 tails is 1 out of 8. What is the probability of getting exactly 2 heads? So we need to have a look at how many different combinations have exactly 2 heads in them. And the answer is 3. We can get a tails, then 2 heads, a head, a tails, then a head, or 2 heads and then a tails. And again, it's out of 8. So the answer is 3/8. Here's some questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video, and when you're ready to mark your work, press play. Here are your answers. So this is our sample space, and the scores are multiplied together. So the probability of scoring an even number is 9 out of 15. And the probability of scoring a number less than 9 is 7 out of 15. For the red question, here's our sample space. The probability of scoring a negative number is 15 out of 36. And the probability of scoring a number less than 4 is 33 out of 36. Now we've completed success criteria 4. So now that we've completed the last objective, it's time to end the video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it useful. Make sure to like and subscribe and be sure to check out the other videos on the rest of the channel. I'll see you next time. See ya.